A wrongful verdict. A young black man framed. Malik Carter, 21 years old, stands in the courtroom, facing a biased justice system, where he's accused of theft simply because of the color of his skin. But Malik isn't naive. Armed with self-taught legal knowledge, he turns the tables, exposing a vengeful plot from his past. Can a young man triumph over an entire system? Join us to uncover Malik's journey, where justice is twisted, but perseverance ignites the truth. Don't look away. This story will make you think. Hit like if you stand for justice, share to spread the story, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring journeys. Let's dive in. The San Francisco County Courthouse was oppressively silent. The packed gallery buzzed with hushed whispers, like small waves rippling, every eye fixed on the defendant's table. Malik Carter, 21 years old, stood there, tall and lean, wearing a worn white dress shirt and old jeans. His hands gripped a small notebook, legal notes he'd written himself since he was 15, like a talisman. Before him, Judge Evelyn Harper, 55, sat high on the bench, her piercing gaze bearing down. She adjusted her glasses, her voice dry and commanding. "Malik Carter, you are charged with auto theft and resisting arrest. Do you understand these charges?" Malik lifted his head, his eyes steady. "I understand, Your Honor, and I'll be representing myself." A murmur swept through the crowd. Prosecutor Richard Evans, seated at the opposing table, let out a mocking chuckle, twirling his pen. "Representing yourself," Evans repeated, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "You think you're a lawyer, Carter? This isn't a playground." Judge Harper banged her gavel, demanding silence. "That's enough, Mr. Evans," she said, her eyes never leaving Malik. "Are you certain, Carter? This is a serious case. I don't have time for games." Malik nodded, his voice calm. "I'm not playing, Your Honor. I know what I'm doing." Evans smirked, whispering to his assistant, "Let's see this kid put on a show. This'll be fun." But Malik wasn't the naive kid they assumed. He'd grown up in the rough Bayview neighborhood, where dreams were often crushed by police sirens and flashing lights. His mother, Angela Carter, worked as a clerk at a small law firm, coming home late with weary eyes. On those evenings when Malik was young, she'd sit at the kitchen table, typing on her laptop while telling him about cases. "Today, I saw a lawyer ignore key evidence, Malik," she once said, her voice heavy with disappointment. Just because his client was poor, he didn't even try. Malik, only 10 at the time, sat across from her, chin propped on his hands, listening intently. "Why don't they do the right thing, Mom?" he asked, his brown eyes wide. Angela sighed, resting her hand on his. "Because the system isn't fair, son. But if you know the law, you can protect yourself. Always stay calm and always be prepared." His mother's words etched themselves into Malik's mind. He started borrowing law books from the library, sneaking files from his mom's office, and studying televised trials. By 15, he joined his school's debate club, stunning teachers by analyzing a mock case with the sharpness of a real lawyer. "You should be an attorney, Malik," one teacher said. Malik just smiled. He knew he would be. But life wasn't kind. Malik's neighborhood was steeped in prejudice. Felice stopped him on the street, asking, "What are you doing here? Where are you headed?" Just because of his skin color. Once, at 17, he was detained for 3 hours simply for looking like a suspect. That injustice fueled his resolve to learn the law, not just to protect himself, but to defend others like him. A twist of fate had put Malik in the spotlight. Last year, he helped Mr. Harris, an elderly neighbor, win a small landlord-tenant dispute. Malik studied rental law, found a loophole in the contract, and coached Mr. Harris to represent himself in court. Harris won, but word spread to a local cop who began watching Malik. "This kid thinks he's smarter than the law," the officer had said to a colleague, his eyes full of malice. That attention led to Malik's wrongful arrest, simply for being near the scene of a car theft. Now, standing in the courtroom, Malik knew he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for his mom, for Mr. Harris, for everyone the system had overlooked. He opened his notebook, flipping to a page on evidence law, and took a deep breath. Harper looked at him, her voice icy. "If you're ready, we'll proceed." Prosecutor, present your case. The San Francisco County Courthouse remained stifling, the audience's whispers fading as Judge Evelyn Harper banged her gavel once more. Her gaze swept over the crowd before settling on Malik Carter, standing at the defendant's table with his small notebook in hand. "Let's proceed," she said, her voice dry. "Prosecutor Evans, present your case." Richard Evans, 40, rose, his sleek black suit pristine, his red tie perfectly knotted. He flashed a confident smile, the kind worn by someone who'd won hundreds of similar cases. Stepping to the center of the courtroom, he held a stack of documents, his eyes gliding over the jury like an actor on stage. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, his voice deep and resonant, "today, we're here for a clear-cut case. Malik Carter, 21 years old, is charged with stealing a car, a $60,000 BMW 5 Series, and resisting arrest. This isn't a misunderstanding, this is a blatant crime." Malik stood still, his eyes fixed on Evans. He gripped his notebook, listening to every word, searching for cracks in the argument. But in the courtroom, the mood tilted toward the prosecutor. A few jurors nodded, whispering to each other. Evans pressed on, his tone compelling. On the night of March 15th, the BMW was reported stolen from a parking lot in the Mission District. Just 2 hours later, police found the car abandoned near an alley in Bayview, the neighborhood where the defendant lives. Malik Carter was arrested a few blocks away after attempting to flee from Officer James Carter. His fingerprints were found on the car door, and Officer Carter testified he saw Malik near the vehicle just before he ran. Evans turned to the jury, his gaze sharp. "Ladies and gentlemen, think about it. Fingerprints on the car, fleeing the scene, and Bayview, a neighborhood notorious for crime. Malik Carter is no stranger to the police. He lives in an area rife with trouble, where young men like him often reoffend. This isn't his first brush with the law." He paused, letting his words sink in, then faced Malik, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Got anything to say, Carter? Or are you just going to stand there pretending to be innocent?" Malik raised his head, his eyes unwavering. "I'll speak, Mr. Evans," he replied, his voice calm but cutting. "But I want to hear your whole story first. You just said I often reoffend. Got any evidence for that, or are you just trying to paint me as a criminal because I'm from Bayview?" The courtroom buzzed. One juror, a middle-aged woman with a skeptical expression, furrowed her brow. Evans flinched, his smile stiffening. He spun his pen in his hand, trying to regain composure. "I don't need evidence for that, Carter," he said, his tone sharp. "Your neighborhood speaks for itself. Bayview isn't exactly a haven for model citizens." Judge Harper banged her gavel, her voice stern. "Mr. Evans, keep it professional. Present evidence, not prejudice." Evans nodded, but his eyes stayed on Malik. "Fine, Your Honor. Let's talk evidence. We have Carter's fingerprints on the car door, undeniable. We have the testimony of Officer James Carter, a law enforcement officer with 15 years of experience, who saw him near the scene. And we have his attempt to flee, guilty behavior. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is an open and shut case. Malik Carter stole the car, got caught, and tried to run. Don't let his excuses fool you." Malik stood motionless, but his mind was racing. He remembered that night, a regular evening when he and two friends walked to a convenience store for snacks. He didn't run, didn't steal a car, and certainly wasn't near the BMW Evans described. But as he headed home, a police car pulled up, lights flashing, and Officer Carter stepped out, yelling, "Freeze, don't run." Malik, startled, walked faster, not running, but enough for the officer to claim he was fleeing. That was his biggest mistake. Evans continued, his tone growing harsher. "Your Honor, I suggest we wrap this up quickly. The defendant has no lawyer, no witnesses, and clearly no ability to defend himself. He's just trying to stall." He turned to Malik, smirking. "Think you're clever, Carter? I've seen hundreds of guys like you. They all lose." Malik took a deep breath, his gaze icy. "Hundreds of guys like me?" he repeated, his voice low but sharp. "You mean black guys from Bayview, right? You think I don't stand a chance because I don't look like you, don't you?" The courtroom fell dead silent. Some spectators gasped. The middle-aged juror now stared directly at Evans, her eyes full of doubt. Harper banged her gavel, her voice firm. "Carter, watch your words. Mr. Evans, I won't tolerate any more prejudice in this courtroom." "Are you finished?" Evans nodded, but his confidence had faltered. "Yes, Your Honor." He sat down, his eyes still locked on Malik, as if trying to read his thoughts. Malik opened his notebook, flipping to his notes on evidence law. He knew Evans had just made a critical mistake. His prejudice not only alienated the jury but gave Malik an opening to strike back. He recalled his mother's words, "Always stay calm and always be prepared." He looked up at Harper, his voice steady. "Your Honor, I'm ready to respond." The San Francisco County Courthouse fell silent after Prosecutor Richard Evans sat down, his cold eyes still fixed on Malik Carter. His confident smile now seemed forced, shaken by Malik's blunt exposure of his prejudice about the Bayview neighborhood. The jury whispered among themselves, the middle-aged woman among them staring at Evans with clear suspicion. Judge Evelyn Harper, perched on her high bench, adjusted her glasses, her voice dry but tinged with curiosity. "Carter, you've heard the prosecution's case. You claim you're representing yourself. Begin." Malik, 21, stood tall, clutching his notebook of legal notes, his talisman since he was 15. He took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping over the jury before settling on Harper. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he started, his voice calm but resolute. "Prosecutor Evans wants you to believe I'm a thief, a fugitive, just because of fingerprints on a car door and an officer's testimony. But I'm here to prove those pieces of evidence don't hold up, and that I was targeted because of prejudice." The courtroom buzzed. Evans let out a mocking chuckle, twirling his pen. "Prejudice," he interjected, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "You think you can blame the system to get out of this, Carter? Your fingerprints were there. You ran. End of story." Malik didn't flinch. He turned to Evans, his eyes sharp. "Mr. Evans, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just asking for real justice, something you don't seem to care about." He faced the jury, his voice lowering. "Let's start with the fingerprints. The prosecutor says my prints on the car door prove I stole it. But think about this. If you touch a public vehicle, like a bus or a friend's car, and it gets stolen later, do your fingerprints mean you're the thief?" The middle-aged woman juror nodded slightly, her expression shifting to curiosity. An older man in the jury furrowed his brow, thinking. Malik pressed on, his voice growing more compelling. "I admit I touched the BMW. That night, I was walking with two friends to a convenience store. On the way back, I saw the car parked in a lot, its door unlocked. I got curious, opened the door, touched the handle. I didn't get in, didn't drive it, didn't take anything. It was a dumb move, I know, but does touching something make me a criminal?" The courtroom went quiet. Evans shot to his feet, his voice harsh. "Touched the car. You expect us to believe you were just curious. You were caught near the scene, Carter, and you ran from Officer Carter." Malik turned to Evans, his tone icy. "I didn't run, Mr. Evans. I walked faster because I was scared. Officer Carter yelled, 'Don't run,' while I was walking home. Do you know what it's like to be targeted by a cop just for the color of your skin? I've been stopped dozens of times in Bayview for no reason other than being black. I panicked, but I didn't run." Harper banged her gavel, her voice stern. "Carter, stick to the evidence. Mr. Evans, let him speak." Malik nodded, opening his notebook to a page on evidence law. "Your Honor, I'd like to request a review of traffic camera footage from the Mission District in Bayview that night. If I really drove the car, as Officer Carter claims, the cameras will show it. But I'm betting they won't." Evans laughed loudly, though it sounded forced. "Traffic cameras? You think you're a detective now, Carter? Officer Carter saw you near the car. His testimony is enough." Malik didn't waver. He faced Harper. "Your Honor, Officer Carter testified he saw me near the car before I fled. But I have reason to believe he wasn't there at that time. I studied traffic law last year to help my mom fight a ticket, and I know that area has cameras on every corner. If his testimony is true, the cameras will back it up. If not, his testimony is a lie. The courtroom hummed with whispers. Harper looked at Malik, her eyes showing a flicker of surprise for the first time. She turned to Evans. "Mr. Evans, does the prosecution have any objection to the request for traffic camera footage?" Evans spun his pen faster, his voice slightly strained. "Your Honor, this is an absurd request. Officer Carter's testimony is on record. We don't need cameras to confirm what a law enforcement officer saw with his own eyes." Malik gave a faint smile, his voice steady. "If Mr. Evans is so confident, why is he afraid of the cameras? Or does he know Officer Carter wasn't really there?" The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Some spectators gasped. The middle-aged woman juror now stared at Malik, her eyes full of trust. Evans jumped up, his voice sharp. "You're slandering an Officer Carter. You have no proof." Malik turned to the jury, his voice low but powerful. "I'm not slandering, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just asking for the truth. And the truth is, I wasn't near the car when it was abandoned. I was arrested because I was in Bayview, and because I'm black. The prosecutor wants you to believe where I live makes me guilty. But the law doesn't work on prejudice. It works on evidence. Evidence I'll show doesn't exist." Harper looked at Malik, her earlier disdain replaced by something else. She recalled her early days as a lawyer, when a male judge dismissed her for her gender. She banged her gavel, her voice calm. "Carter's request is granted. We'll review the traffic camera footage. In the meantime, Carter, do you have anything else?" Malik nodded, his eyes blazing. "Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to request a witness be called. Mr. Luis, a street vendor at the Mission Street corner that night. He saw the real thief, and I believe his testimony will change everything." The San Francisco County Courthouse was steeped in heavy silence, the tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Malik Carter, clutching his notebook of legal notes, stood with a glimmer of hope but a heart pounding wildly. After requesting traffic camera footage and summoning a witness, he'd bet everything on this moment. Prosecutor Richard Evans sat across from him, his eyes icy, but his once confident smile now strained. Judge Evelyn Harper, perched on her high bench, adjusted her glasses, her voice ringing out. "Carter, you've requested the testimony of Mr. Luis, the street vendor. The witness is present. Proceed." A court officer led Mr. Luis in, a middle-aged man with weathered skin, wearing a worn jacket, pushing a small taco cart. He stepped onto the witness stand, his eyes nervous, his hands clasped tightly as if hiding something. Malik approached, his voice calm. "Mr. Luis, can you tell us what you saw on the night of March 15th at the corner of Mission Street?" Luis glanced quickly at Evans, then lowered his head, his voice trembling. I saw a BMW parked in the lot. Around 9 p.m., a young guy ran out, jumped in the car, and drove off. I think it was you." He pointed at Malik, his voice faltering. "Him, Malik Carter, I saw him." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Malik froze, his eyes widening, the notebook nearly slipping from his hands. What did you say?" he stammered, his voice breaking. "Mr. Luis, I wasn't there. You told the police the thief was a white guy. Why are you changing your story?" Luis bowed his head, his voice shaking. I remembered it better. It was you, I'm sure." But his eyes avoided Malik's, his hands trembling uncontrollably. Evans shot to his feet, his voice triumphant. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've heard the witness. Malik Carter was identified at the scene. This testimony, combined with his fingerprints and his attempt to flee, is undeniable evidence. I move to close the trial now." Malik spun toward Evans, his voice sharp. "Mr. Luis is lying. Your Honor, I wasn't in the Mission District that night. I requested the traffic camera footage. It'll prove I wasn't there." Harper banged her gavel, demanding silence. She looked at Malik, her gaze cold but tinged with hesitation. "Carter, the traffic cameras have been reviewed. The report just came in." She picked up a stack of documents, scanning them, then sighed. "There's no footage showing you in the Mission District, but there's also no clear footage of the thief. The cameras aren't enough to discredit Mr. Luis's testimony." Malik felt his heart sink. He turned to Luis, his voice urgent. "Mr. Luis, tell the truth. I know you're not being honest. Someone pressured you, didn't they? How much did they pay you to lie?" Luis flinched, his eyes panicked. I'm not lying," he stammered, but his trembling voice and fleeting glances toward Evans betrayed him. The crowd murmured, some spectators shaking their heads, sensing something off. Evans cut in, his tone harsh. "Your Honor, the defendant is trying to slander the witness. Mr. Luis has testified clearly. He has no evidence to claim the witness was coerced." Malik faced the jury, his voice now laced with desperation. "Ladies and gentlemen, look at Mr. Luis. He's shaking. He won't look at me. I wasn't there that night. I have other evidence, a recording from my mother." He pulled a small USB drive from his notebook, holding it up. "My mom called the police that night, confirming I was home from 8 p.m. She made it clear I couldn't have been in the Mission District at 9 p.m. Harper signaled a court officer. "Play the recording." Angela Carter's voice came through the speakers, trembling but firm. "This is Angela Carter, Malik Carter's mother. My son was home with me from 8 p.m. He couldn't have stolen a car." "Please check again," a police officer's voice responded, indifferent. "Thank you, Ms. Carter. We'll look into it." The courtroom buzzed. The middle-aged woman juror looked at Malik, her eyes full of sympathy. But Evans stood, his voice smug. "Your Honor, this recording doesn't outweigh the direct testimony of Mr. Luis. The defendant's mother is obviously trying to protect her son. This isn't objective evidence." Malik turned to Harper, his voice desperate. "Your Honor, Mr. Luis's testimony contradicts his initial police report. He told them the thief was a white guy. Why did he change his story? I request an investigation into whether he was coerced." Harper looked at Malik, her eyes now thoughtful. She recalled a case from 30 years ago when, as a young lawyer, a witness was pressured to harm her client. But she shook her head, her voice cold. "Carter, you have no concrete evidence to prove Mr. Luis was coerced. His testimony, combined with the fingerprints and Officer Carter's statement, is sufficient for the jury to consider." Malik felt the floor drop out from under him. He looked at the jury, his voice breaking. "Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't steal that car. I was arrested because I was in Bayview, because I'm black. This system isn't giving me a chance to prove the truth." Harper banged her gavel, her voice steady but unyielding. "I've heard enough. Jury, deliberate and return with a verdict." The courtroom stayed silent as the jury deliberated. Malik stood, his hands trembling, his notebook now feeling useless. After 20 minutes, the jury returned. The middle-aged woman stood, her voice shaking. "Your Honor, we have reached a verdict. We find the defendant, Malik Carter, guilty." The courtroom exploded in whispers. Malik slumped into his chair, his eyes vacant. Evans smiled, but it was a calculated smirk. Harper looked at Malik, a flicker of regret in her eyes, but she banged her gavel. "Malik Carter, I sentence you to 3 years in prison for auto theft and resisting arrest." This court is adjourned. Malik was led away, his eyes still fixed on Luis, who now stared at the floor, unable to look up. Malik knew the truth. Luis had been bribed, but he had no proof to back it up. The guilty verdict from the jury still echoed in Malik Carter's mind, along with the shocking testimony of Mr. Luis, the street vendor who'd pointed to him as the culprit. Malik knew Luis was lying, but he had no proof to back it up. Prosecutor Richard Evans stood by his table, a triumphant smirk on his face, his eyes following Malik with cold satisfaction. Judge Evelyn Harper banged her gavel one final time, declaring, "This court is adjourned." But as Malik was led through the hallway, a spark of realization hit him. He stopped abruptly, startling the security officer. "Wait," Malik shouted, his voice hoarse but powerful. "Your Honor, I have new evidence. Evidence the prosecutor himself accidentally provided during the trial. I demand to speak." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Harper, still seated at the bench, frowned, her eyes filled with skepticism. "Carter, the trial is over. You've been sentenced. This is a violation of procedure." Malik raised his head, his eyes blazing. "Your Honor, the law allows for new evidence if it can prove innocence." I'm not asking for favors, I'm asking for justice. If you don't hear me out, you'll be convicting an innocent man, and I know you don't want that." He looked straight at Harper, his gaze unwavering. "You faced prejudice when you started as a lawyer, didn't you? You know what it's like to be dismissed by the system." Harper froze, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. She remembered her early career when a male judge dismissed her arguments simply because she was a woman. She took a deep breath, her voice steady. "All right, Carter, speak, but if this is a stunt, I'll add to your sentence." Malik nodded, his eyes alight with determination. He turned to the jury, his voice low but razor sharp. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Prosecutor Evans presented evidence of my fingerprints on the BMW's door. But he never said where on the door those prints were found, outside or inside. I touched the door, I admit that. But if I really stole the car, drove it, and abandoned it as Mr. Evans claims, my fingerprints would be inside, on the inner door handle, or at least on the steering wheel. So why doesn't Mr. Evans's fingerprint report mention that?" The courtroom went silent. Evans shot to his feet, stammering, "Your Honor, his fingerprints were on the door. That's enough to prove he entered the car." Malik turned to Evans, his gaze icy. "Mr. Evans, you're dodging the question. I demand to see the fingerprint report, right now. If my prints are only on the outside, it proves I didn't enter the car, didn't drive it, and didn't steal it. But if you refuse, I think we all know what you're hiding." The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. The middle-aged woman juror stared at Evans, her eyes brimming with doubt. Harper banged her gavel, her voice stern. "Mr. Evans, produce the fingerprint report." Immediately, Evans paled, his hands trembling as he flipped through his documents. He scanned the pages, his voice faltering. The fingerprints were found on the outer door handle. He paused, his eyes panicked. But that doesn't mean he didn't enter the car." Malik smiled, his voice kind like a blade. "Doesn't mean, Mr. Evans, if I drove the car, my prints would be inside. They're not. Your own report proves I didn't steal the car. And there's more, Mr. Luis." He turned to Luis, his eyes blazing. "Mr. Luis, you lied. The fingerprints prove I didn't enter the car, yet you said you saw me drive it. Who paid you to lie? It was Mr. Evans, wasn't it?" The courtroom was breathless. Luis bowed his head, his hands shaking. After a long pause, he broke down sobbing, his voice choked. I'm sorry. Mr. Evans paid me $500 to say you were the thief. He said if I didn't, he'd make sure I lost my taco cart. I had no choice." The courtroom exploded. Spectators stood, shouting in outrage. The jury exchanged shocked glances. Evans yelled, his voice breaking, "Your Honor, this is slander. I didn't do it." Malik turned to Evans, his tone frigid. "Mr. Evans, you thought I wouldn't figure it out? You had a personal reason to frame me. My mother, Angela Carter, worked at the law firm where you interned 20 years ago. She reported you for deliberately tampering with evidence in a case to win. You were fired, and you blamed her. You targeted me to get revenge on my family, didn't you?" The courtroom fell silent. Evans's face drained of color, his eyes vacant. After a pause, he slumped, whispering, I just wanted to win." Harper banged her gavel, her voice severe. "Enough. Based on the new evidence, Mr. Luis's testimony, and the prosecutor's misconduct, I declare, the previous verdict is overturned. Malik Carter is found not guilty. Mr. Evans, you will face an investigation for witness tampering and perverting the course of justice." The courtroom burst into applause. Malik exhaled, tears streaming down his cheeks. He looked at Harper, his voice hoarse. "Thank you, Your Honor. Justice won today." Harper looked at him, her eyes now filled with respect. "Carter, you accomplished what many lawyers couldn't. This system needs people like you." Malik nodded, his eyes shining. He knew this wasn't the end. He would become a lawyer, not just to protect himself, but to defend those overlooked by the system, just like he was today. Malik Carter's story isn't just a gripping courtroom drama. It's a powerful lesson about the strength of knowledge, perseverance, and faith in justice. Malik, a 21-year-old from the rough Bayview neighborhood, faced a biased justice system where he was wrongfully accused simply because of his skin color and where he lived. But he didn't give up. Armed with self-taught legal knowledge from a young age, Malik turned the tables, proved his innocence, and exposed the misconduct of Prosecutor Richard Evans. He didn't just save himself, he opened the door for change, for the system itself, and for the marginalized who've been overlooked. The biggest lesson from this story is, even in the darkness of injustice, you can find light if you keep fighting. Malik did it through knowledge and preparation, things anyone can achieve with enough determination. But the story also raises a painful question. How many others, without Malik's knowledge, have been wrongfully convicted by the system? The justice system is built to protect fairness, but it's run by people, and people can make mistakes, harbor biases, or even act maliciously. Malik's story is a wake-up call that we need those who dare to stand up, dare to challenge, and dare to change, just as he did when he uncovered Evans's personal vendetta, rooted in a grudge against Malik's mother for reporting his misconduct 20 years earlier. Let this story inspire you. Justice doesn't come automatically, it must be fought for. You could be the next one to spark change, whether in your community or within the system itself. When was the last time you stood up for what was right? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. If Malik's journey touched your heart, hit like to show your support, share to spread the message of justice, and subscribe to our channel to catch more meaningful stories. Let's build a community where justice always has a voice. See you in the next video. Keep watching to explore more inspiring journeys together.